We just wanted to cover some of the myths and realities of the NSGP Homeland Security grant and some of the questions we've had over time. One of them being, myth number one, it's the same award amount and items each year. So that actually is not correct. That is a myth. The reality is that each year the grant is appropriated through Congress. And that can vary. For example, in 2020 it was 90 million. It got doubled the following year to 180 million. And that pool of funds is open to applicants. We do know, as an example last year, that out of $180 million worth of funding available, $400 million worth was applied for, which means it's a competitive grant and that only 43% of applicants got it. So that's why it's critical that you have great grant writers, you have a great plan, you have a great security assessment, and all the pieces that make a successful grant help you to be in that top pile as they review and score them. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the next one so you can cut this break up now. Myth number two, it's a guaranteed grant as long as you apply. So the reality is that it's not. It's a highly competitive grant. It's got more competitive over the last few years. There's other houses of faith, churches, mosques, non-profits, because it is a non-profit grant. It isn't just for religious organizations, are applying as well. And as mentioned previously, 46% of applicants were successful. So just because you apply doesn't mean you're going to get. So the critical parts are the security assessment, the analysis of your site, any threats that are specific to your site, to your city or state. And if you are a school, or if you're a synagogue, or a house of faith, that those elements are going to help in the determination process and the scoring process that FEMA goes through to award you. You can cut that now. Myth number three, you deal directly with FEMA. So in the alphabet soup of federal organizations that are involved with this grant, there's FEMA, there's DHS. The reality is it is a FEMA grant. The grant is administered by FEMA. However, you deal with what is known as an SAA, or State Administrative Authority. And this would be usually your State Emergency Management Office. They're the clearinghouse. These are the people that you send the paperwork through to send to FEMA. And that begins at the time of the application as well. They receive all the applications and they score them, most years themselves, and then they forward them to FEMA as well. The supporting documents that you would send to them will vary from year to year. But the reality is you'll never have direct contact with FEMA, even though the contract is between you and FEMA. The grant, okay, cut that. Even though the awarding agency is FEMA and the approving agency is FEMA, you'll always deal with your state grant managers. Myth number four, you get a check directly from FEMA. As mentioned previously, you're dealing with two agencies, your State Emergency Management and FEMA as well. The reality is you're not going to get a check directly from FEMA. And it's a reimbursement grant. A lot of people don't realize that. Now there are some ways to get funding prior to, but the normal way is that you do the work, you put in for the reimbursement, and you get it back from FEMA. But again, this is all being processed through by your state agency. Many people don't realize it's a step-by-step process. Now, there is a 36-month period of performance. What that means is from the time that they, late summer usually, that you're notified that you're awarded, there's still an approval process that you have to go through. It's step-by-step, and it's coming from FEMA to your state agency to you. This can take time, and again, both parties have 36 months to perform. So COVID certainly didn't help with delays, and we can try and be as efficient as possible in getting the state agency your paperwork. But again, it's an approval process. And what that means more critically is, if you do work before approval or the green light from FEMA or your state agency, you could forfeit the opportunity to get it reimbursed, meaning you could be out of that money. So it's critical, and they have ways of checking it out, that you stick to the deadline that they give you, and also that you do not go over or proceed without authorization from them. Myth number 5, it just takes a few months to get the grant and get awarded and get it all processed. It's actually a 36-month period of performance that the contract refers to. And I mentioned previously how this is a reimbursement grant, that's number 1. Number 2, that you cannot do any work until it's approved. So you have been awarded, you've got the award, congratulations, that's great. But the part 2 is you cannot do the work until you're given the green light. So they do approve at the state level. Many times it has to go back to a FEMA as well, and this does take time. COVID-19 certainly didn't help, and it has delayed things as well, but generally you should be able to get this done and closed and paid for within 36 months or less. Myth number 6, security assessments are all the same. I actually personally wish that they were, but they're not. There's no set standard. There's no obligation for a local law enforcement department, whether it's your sheriff or police department, or even for private security, to give you an assessment that is uniform, meaning it highlights all the issues of your site. We've seen, even from the same police department, anything from 1 page with just simple checks to 30-40 pages of really good detailed items as well. The most critical thing about any security assessment, whether it's done by law enforcement, private security, or you can even do it yourself, which we don't recommend, is that the items that you are applying for, the items that you want, are mentioned in the security assessment. Now, what that really means is that you're able to identify objectively what critical items there are for your site to make it safe. Now, as a rule of thumb, we generally start on the outside with a perimeter and we work in. Obviously, you can cut your own hair if you want, or you can go to a barber who has a different perspective on what's going on. And I use that example with security assessments as well. So if you have any questions on a security assessment, reach out to someone who does them almost every day and get an evaluation. We have actually had some sites that have done from 2 different departments as well, and private security, and just seen what the best is. But just remember that your application, your entire grant is based on the statements made in that security assessment. Add this line to the last part, which was number 6. Additionally, if you have security staff or you have contracted security you pay for, you can also have them do an assessment as well. And generally, they'll be more aware of what your challenges are. So work with them as a team and just get what you need. Okay, use this version, cut that one. Additionally, if you have your own security company that you work with all the time that knows what your challenges are, have them do an assessment as well. And they for sure will understand what your challenges are, where you're weak and where you're strong. Myth number 7. You can only get the DHS grant once. Not correct. We have more than several sites have got them, not necessarily year after year, but they've got the grants 2 or 3 times. When they score the grants, they do deduct if you have previously received the grant, because they want it to be fair for everyone and everyone to have a chance to get it. But again, if you have a strong assessment and you're showing that you have ongoing phases of security upgrades and installations, then you can get the grant again. I personally encourage everyone to apply every year. Obviously there does come a time where you've exhausted seemingly what is necessary for your site, but then there are upgrades after many years. Maybe the camera system has to be redone, added lighting, contractor security is an ongoing thing. There are many items out there that you can apply for again. And it is possible to apply for the grant after you've received it more than once, and not for the full amount. Meaning, if the grant award is $150,000, you received it before, and this coming year is being offered again at $150,000, you can apply for $75,000 or $100,000. You just have to be able to justify their investing federal funding into your site to help keep it safe and secure.